welcome back to another fantastic episode of Game. I'm sure you've been emailing us like crazy, but if you have not, be sure to email us at gameshowchat@gmail.com. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook and hit us up on Twitter at GameShowChat. So today we got a very distinguished and a very sleek topic today. We're talking about none other than who is the best James Bond. We have my man GQ here, James Bond. And then we have my man, the great Datakuji. Fellas, game on.
All right, well, just putting it right out there. I grew up watching James Bond, like I'm sure a lot of us have. You know, caught it on TBS Superstation for all of you that are, had Comcast cable and some of the various cable stations when they would run those Bond marathons. And I was always drawn to Sean Connery as Bond. To me, not just because he was the first Bond, because he actually technically wasn't the first Bond. They did a 1 hour special based on the Casino Royale story. And there was a gentleman, let me look it up because I can't, no, not Peter Sellers. It wasn't Peter Sellers. This is a gentleman named Barry Nelson. Played him back in 1954. Back when it was just, they were just writing the stories and then just, so CBS, I think, actually went to Ian Fleming and said, we want to take one of your stories and put it on TV. And that was the first time Bond had ever showed up in anything. Now, the first movie Bond basically was, Sean Connery with Dr. No. So Sean Connery, to me, he set the tone for just, he was real suave, he was smooth, but he was, at the same time, he had that hard edge to him. It's like, you don't, man or woman, you don't cross this man. James Bond will take care of business. He don't care if you a man or woman or whatever.
Yeah, I remember that's one thing that it was one of the first times I'd ever seen a woman struck, and he hit her pretty tough. And it wasn't nobody, no one was ever up in arms about it. They were just kind of like, oh, he's messing with James. Or she was messing with James. And I believe they were all in a evening setting too. But who's one of your favorites?
Out of my favorite, James Bond, it would probably have to be Sean Connery. He did set the tone for how Bond should be. And there's a lot of Bonds out there that kind of twisted that tone, but Sean Connery was suave, he was debonair, he got the job done, he was assassin, he did what he was supposed to do. Is he my favorite Bond? I wouldn't say he's my favorite Bond. I would say he's the best Bond, but best Bond and favorite Bonds don't really coincide for me. But
who's your
favorite? My favorite Bond would have to be a toss-up between Pierce Brosnan and, a lot of people would think I would say Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig is a pretty good Bond. I love Timothy Dalton in License to Kill. License to Kill, to me, when I first saw that movie and how I was explained to how ruthless Bond is. Now, Sean Connery did Bond real well. He didn't really seem like he was a ruthless character because when you have debonair, it's kind of hard to be, ruthless and debonair at the same time. I mean, it's possible, but at the same time, he was, his way of Bond. But when I saw when Felix got messed up, I don't remember if he got killed or not, but when they messed up Felix and Bond was, he was going all out.
It's like the gloves came off for Bond.
The gloves came off big time, and I was just like, wow. And a lot of people don't like Timothy Dalton as Bond. I have no idea why not, because he kept the Sean Connery, type, Bond going on. And Pierce Brosnan, if you think about it, they could have replaced Timothy and Pierce. They could have been the same Bond.
Timothy was chosen because Pierce was not available due to his Remington Steel contract.
Yeah.
So they were getting, literally, it seemed like they got two people that, like you said, were interchangeable. They were almost the same guy, basically, playing Bond. Now, of course, Pierce approached it more from the smooth, slightly older Bond because of the fact that, by the time his contract with Remington Steel was up, he was an older guy.
Yeah.
Now, I would have to say I definitely enjoyed Connery. But then when it comes to who would be my favorite, I'm just picking between phrases and catchphrases. Like when he, I think it might have been Famke Janssen. When he strikes certain heads, so with that no more foreplay. And that was, that was it for me, just because he was so cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, and just when Halle Berry is coming out the water, and he said something about her being, a wonderful sight, and he was just smooth the entire time. Not that Connery wasn't, but just Pierce Brosnan, I think, from having the options of seeing those before him, that he was able to, introduce himself and then pick it and choose, when he would do maybe Dalton or when he would be more Connery or even Roger Moore. But
See, I take it. Now, Roger Moore to me. Now, we all grew up in the '80s.
Yeah.
Roger Moore was the Bond of the '80s. However, Roger Moore's Bond, there was just something missing with Roger Moore's Bond. He was the uncle that had some interesting cars and toys, but he wasn't quite as smooth as Bond. His Bond was just really, his Bond was almost a comedic, not quite as bad as like Inspector Gadget or like Inspector Clouseau from Pink Panther, but he was getting real close. It's like his Bond was smooth by accident. He would get the job done because he kind of fell into it and it worked. And okay, here we go. And I didn't like his Bond.
You said he was like
I honestly
Archer.
just didn't.
I'm not a big fan of Roger Moore Bond. I've been very vocal on that. I liked him in Live and Let Die because that was his first movie, and that was before they just started getting silly with Bond. And he did a good job in that one. But as progressed, oh my goodness, people complain about George Lazenby. George Lazenby had one Bond movie, and in my honest opinion, it was the only Bond movie where Bond actually was a spy. He didn't walk into some place and tell everybody who he was. He actually went undercover and tried to have a completely different persona to fish out the bad guy, and something tragic really happened to Bond in that movie, and if you watch those Bond movies, you'll know what I'm talking about. But when they came to Roger Moore, and they put this man in outer space, and they had them fighting like Star Wars. And I'm going, this is not James Bond. Whose idea was this? Why did they green light this movie?
So do you think Roger Moore's downfall was because of whoever was manning that project?
That could be.
It could be some of that, but like I said, he did not feel like Bond. It's like you saw this man, you looked at him, it's like, okay, he should be like one of the scientists in the background. That's kind of what it felt like when you looked at Roger Moore compared to what you had seen from Connery. Connery's was high action, it was really good. It was really well done. Lazenby, he just wrong place at wrong time. Because they were trying to find somebody to replace Connery because Connery had already said by the time he did, not Diamonds Are Forever, because he came back to do Diamonds Are Forever after on Her Majesty's Secret Service was what everybody disliked. They did not like that movie. It was just not well received because people had gotten so used to Connery, so they were like, let's get him back.
Okay, well,
They got him back.
Before we, what about Daniel Craig? We haven't been too much mention of him. What did you guys think?
Daniel Craig is an excellent Bond, but at the same time, for me, he doesn't have that suave
So you
portion.
think when they went with him, they just went too much
He's
Dalton?
like-
it was just rough and rugged.
I think
the entire time.
Daniel Craig to me, and the first time I saw that opening sequence from Casino Royale, Daniel Craig is the Bond that will chase you down. You are not getting away from Daniel Craig. Daniel Craig's Bond is, okay, you took a shot at him. Sean Connery's Bond, even some of the other Bonds, you would have took a shot at him. You're like, all right, fine, I don't remember that. I'm gonna get you later. Right. No, not Daniel Craig. Take a shot at him. You better have your running shoes on because this man will chase you down and will beat you down.
I think he ran the most out of any Bond.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
he was a running Bond.
Well, now, quick question. And quick answers. Idris Elba, ever a Bond?
I would like to see it. I don't know how the world would take it.
You see the way I'm dressed? I think they could do a black Bond eventually.
Yeah, I definitely think they could do a black Bond. Let us know what you think. Will there ever be a black Bond? Did you like Dalton? Did you like Roger Moore, Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan, or Daniel Craig? Be sure to let us know. GameShowChat@gmail.com. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. And hit us up on Twitter @GameShowChat. Game on.
Bless your heart.